Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I'm going to go over the techniques and baits that were the most productive for me this year, the year of 2024. Before I get started, I would like to thank everybody that has gave me a like, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel, and for tuning back in. I had a goal this year by the end of the year to get to 500 subscribers, and you guys helped me do that. Right now I'm at 660, and I'm hoping 2025 I can grow the channel even more. If you haven't subscribed, I would ask that you would consider subscribing. I've talked about this frequently. There's many of you that come back just about every time I put out a new video and watch the videos, or at least watch some of the videos, a good portion of them. I would ask that you would please consider subscribing to continue to help the channel grow. When I started this YouTube journey, I did not realize the amount of time and work that goes into it. But having said that, I've enjoyed every second of it. So, being that a lot of you are returning and watching the videos but haven't yet subscribed, I'll continue to ask you to consider it to keep helping the channel grow. And if you're coming back checking out my content anyway, it's helping you catch a fish, one more fish than you would have caught if I told you something that's just helped you out on the water in some way. I'd ask that you please consider subscribing. Now, let's get into today's video. 2024 was a good year for me as far as catching fish. I caught a good number of fish. I did pretty decent in most of my tournaments, and I was able to catch a lot of fish on camera in a lot of my videos, which, you know, I assume played a part in helping the channel grow. My thought process when I started this channel was to share things I've learned against, while fishing with and against a lot of the guys I've known since I started fishing 30 years ago. And I've fished against some guys that were really, really, really good fishermen, and to this day they are good fishermen. And I've learned different things from them, and I've learned things on my own. In 2024, now that I look at the baits that I've laid out to talk about, honestly, it wasn't that many baits. And a lot of the stuff I've depended on in the past, I'm not going to say I didn't catch a fish with them this year, but it wasn't something that I've leaned on to consistently catch fish when I was either out on the water fun fishing, or recording a video, or fishing in a tournament. These are the baits that I leaned on, and a lot of them I've used for multiple things. So without further ado, let's get started. February and March, I really had a good amount of success with this spinnerbait right here. This is the Strike King Bleeding Bait Series. It's a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait, chartreuse and white, and you can see it's got the red skirt material, and it's got a red hook. You guys know I'm big on the red hooks and having red on my baits whenever I can. I caught my personal best fish at Falls Lake real early this year, and I can't remember, it may have been March, may have been April, but I feel like it was in March, and it was on one of these spinnerbaits this size. This isn't the exact one, but it was 1/2 ounce, chartreuse and white, red hook, red in the skirt, Strike King spinnerbait. I caught other fish with that bait too, but in March it was one that I leaned on a lot. Had good success with it, and that's a spinnerbait I've been throwing for years. As we rolled into April and May, and we got into the spawn, I began to work with fishing a rig that I actually saw on YouTube called a free rig. It is different than a Texas rig. Some people say it's the same thing. You know, I just like to tell them what I think my difference in between the two is, and I think it has to do with the placement of the sliding drop shot sinker and using the bobber stop on the line to keep the sinker off of the hook and the bait itself. But one bait that I really had a lot of success this year with, pretty much all year long, was this Strike King Scoon bug in green pumpkin blue. This was a bait that I kept on the free rig most of the year, and it got me a lot of fish. It put a lot of fish in the boat. I did catch a few on black and blue also, but the green pumpkin blue was by far the best color for me. And that was in the river. That was in the lakes, reservoirs that I fish. I fish a lot of the Zoom Ultra Vibe Speed Crawl. Did not produce the same as this did. They look kind of similar. This is a little different. But this piece of plastic on a free rig was a big producer for me this year as well. Another piece of plastic I used a lot this year is the 10,000 fish Yoda Worm, the 3 3/4, the black and blue. And this is called Pink Lemonade, and I'm not sure why. There is a little pink hue to it, but it's a real good shad imitator. The tail on this thing, this is the black and blue, obviously. And you know, this one's brand new, and you can see the tail. This thing's got wicked action. This is one that had been used a lot, and you can tell the tail's not quite, you know, it's not quite the same. This one's been used, this one hasn't. I fished these on a free rig and had some success with them. I also fished them a little on a Texas rig, but mostly on the free rig. But the place and the situations I had the most luck with this Yoda Worm was on a buzz bait and on a bladed jig. They really were the best two pieces of plastic trailers for me on a bladed jig. And green pumpkin bladed jig was by far my best color. And the Boogerman buzz bait. And since we're talking about buzz baits, the Boogerman with the gold blade and the Boogerman with the chrome blade, and I would paint one side of it black and leave one side of it chrome. That's just something I do. Give them a little bit of flash and a little bit of not, you know, just change it up a little. This was my best buzz bait all year long, the Boogerman buzz bait. Tackle Warehouse sells it. I don't know who else does, because at one point they got hard to find. But the Boogerman buzz bait, I love this buzz bait. I love the racket that it makes with the head, the blade slapping the side of the head. I've mentioned before, a lot of fishermen love the squeaker type, and I have some of those. I just, for whatever the reason, don't get as much production out of the squeaker style buzz baits as I do these. Now there is one other buzz bait I had a lot of luck this year with, and this is an old school buzz bait. This is the old Booah Buzz is what it's called. It's just called the Booah Buzz, and it's got the little paddle on it that the blade smacks. Entirely different sound than the Boogerman. Caught a lot of fish with this, and I would pair it up with a black and blue Yoda Worm. Good, this was a good buzz bait for me. So we got the Booah Buzz, the black and blue Yoda Worm. I had the Boogerman with the shad color or pink lemonade color Yoda Worm. And I would use the black and blue occasionally on the Boogerman as well. It depended on what the situation was. But the gist of it was this Yoda Worm is a very versatile piece of plastic. I love finding something I can use for more than one thing. And you can use this thing on a lot of different baits. You can fish it by itself, or you can use it on a chatterbait, a bladed jig, a buzz bait, a spinner bait. You could do a lot of stuff with this. And the action, like I said, on the tail of these things is pretty wicked. Now there was one other piece of plastic that I used a lot on bladed jigs and buzz baits as well, mostly on a bladed jig. And I even fished this some on the free rig, but with not the same result as the Scoon bug. And this is the Black Label Baits CP Crawl, 3 3/4, 3.75 inch. This is twisted Mudbug. This is Japanese bluegill. I love this Japanese bluegill. I use these on jigs and my bladed jigs. Very, very good piece of plastic you can do a lot of stuff with. Put it on the free rig. I flipped it some on the Texas rig, and this was just a good bait. If you haven't checked out Black Label Baits, it's a bait company that's owned by Cliff Pace, and I've spoken about that before too. He's got his own plastics, and he makes the Black Label Balsa crankbaits. This is also a very versatile piece of plastic you can do a lot of different things with. Anytime I can find something that I can use for multiple things, I like to do that, especially if it's productive and I can use it on more than one bait or on more than one technique or application. I'll mention briefly the bladed jig. Green pumpkin, 3/8 ounce bladed jig with either the Yoda Worm or this Japanese bluegill Black Label CP Crawl. They were all green pumpkin. I'm not going to say I didn't throw any different colors of bladed jig, because during the shad spawn, you'll throw a white with a silver blade or a white with a gold blade. But I'd say 90% of the fish I caught on a bladed jig this year were on this green pumpkin right here. Green pumpkin, bladed jig, the black blade, and the Yoda Worm as a trailer. The last two baits, and I'm going to save the most productive bait for last. As we went through summer, middle late summer, and got into fall, tiny. This is the Rapala OG Tiny, and this is the 3 to 4 foot diver. I think it says 3 to 5, but it probably dives 3 to 4 on 12-pound big game. That's what I fish most of the time. Citrus shad. This is an awesome little bait. This bait gets a lot of bites, and this bait will catch a 3 or 4 pounder or bigger every now and again. But it catches a lot of keepers. It's been in a lot of the videos I've made. The most recent success I had with it was on the Tar River, that third place on the Tar River. Every fish I caught on that tough day came on this bait. I've got it in other colors. I've caught in some of the crawl patterns. I've caught a few fish, but this by far, this color has been the bread and butter. This has been an awesome little bait. Actually the last 2 years, but this year I really put a lot more time in with it. It comes through cover well, and it's a good size of a lot of the smaller bait fish, especially as you go into the fall and the bait fish get smaller. It was a real good choice, and it worked out really good for me. It's probably not going to be a surprise. My number one bait all year. You know, this is a bait. You always have something that you never go fishing without having it tied on anymore. And for me, that's this bait right here. You know, guys know I love to crank. It's my favorite way to catch them. I talk about it a lot. I started buying Black Label Balsa about 2 years ago. I've got several of his baits. In fact, I got a box that I only keep my Black Label Balsa baits in. I'm big on Balsa baits because I do feel like there are times when they get you more bites. I'm big on crankbaits without rattles. A lot of the Balsa, in fact, I don't think he makes a Balsa bait with a rattle in it. I think fishing pressure nowadays being what it is, especially in stained to dirty water, a lot of people are always throwing a rattling crankbait, and I try not to throw a rattling crankbait. And if fishing's really tough and I'm on any kind of cranking bite at all, and it starts to really get to where they just aren't eating it the same, this little bait right here It's weird because it almost has, to me, an action of like a square bill, but it's a flat side, so the action is more subtle and tight. And this color has been just like, and I have these in the medium runner he makes too. This 3 to 5 foot, 12-pound line on a cranking stick, and I just catch so many fish with this bait. I've caught them at Kerr, I've caught them at Falls, I've caught them at Gaston. I've caught them on every river in here in North Carolina. They eat this bait. So this is by far was my most productive bait of 2024. Now, having said that, going into 2025, I did some things different this year, fishing in tournaments and stuff, and I saw good results from it. I know a couple other things I need to change for 2025, and I hope to even have a better year tournament-wise and be able to create better content for the channel. So I'll go over that kind of stuff later. But this is it. These were the baits for me for 2024 that really did most of the work for me. I'm sure you guys had baits too. If you want to leave them in the comments, tell me what your workhorse or what your most reliable technique or dependable bait was, whether it was a hard bait, bladed jig, spinner bait, soft plastic, glide bait, swim bait, whatever it may have been. Just leave it in the comments. Again, thanks for watching, guys. The year's drawing to a close, and it's been a good year. I hope it was a good year for you guys on the water. It was for me. And I look forward to 2025 and seeing what else I can do to improve the channel and help you guys catch more fish and catch more fish myself as well. So I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you very much.